obviously the concerning missives coming out of Whitehaven now asking for fans to donate money. As mentioned last week, these are difficult times for everyone, whether you're a professional sports club or just the regular Joe or Josephine on the street. So is it a surprise that a club who are at that bottom end of the championship, obviously don't have wealthy backers, are struggling? And I guess the answer to that question is, well, not really, no. It's how do you manage expectations of supporters who obviously want to be as high as possible, but also not bankrupt yourself at the same time? And that's the difficult thing for club owners from the top of Super League to the bottom of League One.
I think that's the challenge, isn't it? Rugby League's often been built around one or two wealthy owners or directors involved in clubs, and where you've got a club that doesn't have that, which appears to be the case in Whitehaven, then you are going to be prone to that. I mean, I think they've budgeted for slightly larger crowds than they're getting, which is obviously not helping the revenue. And you've got to budget back in late last year, and perhaps not knowing exactly what your income stream is going to be. It's tricky, but I guess that's business. But if you haven't got somebody with some deep pockets that you can go to when things get tough, but it's not a great look, is it? Going, putting yourself on GoFundMe or whatever it is that they're on. It's a really poor look for a semi-professional competition, a semi-professional club, really.
If only London Irish had done. And let's not go there. But does it also say something about the dearth of talent in Cumbria at the moment, which we know is a hotbed and we want to keep going? And maybe not dearth of talent in terms of there's some really good quality players playing in the community competition, but that they don't want to transfer into the semi-professional ranks. And where was before, Workington, Whitehaven, I don't know if we do include Barrow because it's perennial debate about whether that's in Cumbria or not. But certainly those two clubs, the traditional ones, they don't seem to have that ready supply of young players coming through who are match ready to play at championship level. And it might be to do with the fact that we've heard it before that, a lot of these players have got very good jobs at people like BNFL. And they don't want to necessarily just give up their social side of playing rugby to reduce their time at work and suffer potential injury and play in a part-time basis. I just wonder whether that's something that is specific to Cumbria at the moment, because there doesn't seem to be that same level of player recruitment. And whilst it's great that the figures that were brought out with the RFL accounts indicated there were 6% more people playing in the community game, I just don't know whether that is the case up in Cumbria at the moment.
It's a long time, really, since Whitehaven or Workington were pushing the top end of the championship table, isn't it? Workington have sort of yo-yoed a little bit in and out of the championship, and Whitehaven have probably been mid-table towards the bottom end of the championship and themselves been, I think, in League One. So, yeah, and I mean, people talk about whether there should be a Super League team in Cumbria. I think you made the point there, Phil, isn't it? In terms of local talent, you're going to have to pay people enough to leave their good jobs at BNFL to become a full-time professional athlete, never mind a part-time player. But it's a shame because, as you say, the community game up there is strong. And the game doesn't really want to see one of its clubs go to the wall.
We ask these questions so often and for so long that maybe there just isn't an answer to the Cumbrian question. Maybe there just isn't an answer. It's not as simple as saying, let's put a team in Super League there because of the historical rivalries between the two sides, unless there is a real will between those two clubs to want to do it and how you do it. And if you keep the other two clubs in League One or whatever, and it's one of those, and is the stadia there for in the area that would be at Super League standard, which is not a thing anymore. But you know what I mean? It's all these little things that add up. Yeah, does anyone have the answer anymore?
Yeah, I think IMG have the answer. And I know it doesn't suit all people. And I know that clearly that there are some vociferous people who are against the fact that you're trying to manufacture what competitive sport might look like. But the truth is you also have to play to what you've got and not what you think you have or what you used to have. And it may well be that bringing out these grading criteria, which I know we've all spent hours poring over now that they're publicly available. I know I've been doing nothing else most evenings. My word, they're complicated, which is great because, it's transparent. You get to see them. But for the clubs themselves, they now need to take the kind of decisions that you were just talking about. If Cumbria is serious about having a Super League presence, they now have a route that tells them what they've got to do to get to that. Now, whether they want to talk to each other about doing it together, whether one of them thinks they're strong enough to do it apart, what they've got is the template. And if we do stick to it and it is rigidly enforced and people get away from the fact that it's all about whether you've got an electronic sign hoarding and how many Twitter followers you've got, which it isn't. That is a very small part of a very big project. And it's ironic as well, as we make the point in the magazine, because we're looking at whether this has been the closest season ever, particularly at Super League level. The fact is we should be looking at what's happening on the field at the moment, and we've now got a big document telling us what needs to happen off the field, and there's a certain irony about that. But what it does for places like Cumbria, it says, you want to be at this level, that's what you got to do. You go away and tell us how you're going to do it. There's quite an interesting point made by Carl Hall in his feature on League One about how Doncaster are going about looking at it, and they're not querying the fact that those standards and conditions are now there. They're looking at how they make the best of it, and I guess that's what every club should be doing.